Hello everyone and welcome back to some more Battletech Alpha Strike for the channel. It's a little bit of a smaller one today, I guess just in terms of number of mechs, because it's only a single lance per side. We'll go into the specifics in a little bit, of course. But both those lances are also filled with heavy and assault mechs, so it's all the big guns come into play today. But it might still end up being a little bit shorter just because it's a single lance each. Nevertheless, we'll give it a go and see. And this series is one of a few available early to channel members. You'll see it about a week early before everyone else. And that is just going a small way, I hope, to thank you for the extra support that helps keep the upload schedule and the frequency of videos possible. And if you can spare anything to become a channel member, it would be greatly appreciated. You could also check out the channel sponsor that you'll see a little ad for in a bit. But either way, we're going to be playing using some of the, if you're curious about the roads, this is Hextech roads. Actually pretty neat, they all slot together. There's also some modular hills and buildings and things you can get as well. I'm using my own buildings for the table today. But the roads and the hills are by Hextech. It's a little expensive, I will say. The quality is great though. Not sponsored or anything, but that's the roads that you're seeing today and taking up a vast majority of the battlefield. Anyway, without further ado, let's look at the two sides. So let's start by looking at the new additions to my Flik's Marauders mercenary band, because I've been pinning up some new models for it. So here they are here, and they are forming a lance. Both sides are almost entirely equal points wise prior to adding on pilot skill. One side is 175, one side is 177. The skill of your pilot is in relation to the cost of the mech. The higher the cost of the mech, the more points get added on for the higher skilled pilots. But it is also roughly even across the board, with every pilot being skill 4 except one commanding officer who's going to be skill 3, which will get pointed out in a second. So, speaking of which, the commanding officer for this lance is going to be in the Timberwolf / Mad Cat. Had to paint one of those up in my mercenary colours after seeing how effective they've been. Specifically, this is the Timberwolf A variety. So, skill 3, the rest of them are skill 4. We have a Guillotine 3N. Pretty decent at short, medium range, this version. No long range capability at all though, but pretty sturdy. I believe 6 armor, 6 structure. Then we have an Axeman up here. Specifically, this is the Axeman 1N. Also doesn't have any long range capability, but does want to get in there to smack people with his axe, which you can't quite see, but he does have an actual axe, hence the name. And then finally, over here, we have the Longbow. This is a Longbow 7V. Obviously, very good at long range. But honestly, this variant of the longbow, the 7V, is pretty good in every range bracket. 4 in short range, 5 in medium, so medium is actually a sweet spot, and 4 at long range, with indirect fire 3 as well. So obviously he wants to just kind of hang back and do some damage, and overall, I think this was the group that was 175 prior to adding on skill. And over here in very strange colours, we have Snord's Irregulars. This is the Snord's Irregulars box you can buy. This is what you get in it, hence why it's the only lance showing today, but it's filled with pretty dangerous mechs. They love their tech. So their boss is going to be in the Highlander, which is right here, the tallest one, if you don't count them being on taller scenery, of course. That is a Highlander 694, so he will be skill 3, the pilot of that one. The rest of them are skill 4. Highlander, very dangerous in short and medium range, has long range capability but not quite as great. Then at the back, they also have a Guillotine, but this is a 7M variety as opposed to the 3N. Doesn't have as much it has long range capability rather, the other one didn't, but it exchanges case for case 2 as a result of that. I think that's the only difference really. Then we have, down here, a mech that I was not familiar with at all. It's a Spartan N3. 4 damage, or 4 weapons, short range, 4 medium range, and 1 long range, and it has some rules I don't recognise, so we'll have to look into those, I guess. C3I, MHQ2, and tag. Okay, that's fine. And then, the best one of all out of the box, this is the Hybrid Rifleman, aka the Sneed 2, aka Franken Mech, because it's got parts of a rifleman, parts of an archer, and parts of a third thing, I think. It's doing 5 in short range, 5 in medium, 4 in long. It's got case 2, ECM, indirect fire. It's got rear firing weapons as well. That's from the archer body, I guess. And it's just a mishmash of tech. And that's kind of like what Snord's Irregulars are all about. Just nonsense. The official art on the card is a mess of colours for these things. Even on the side where it's like not like multicolored rainbow, it's still red, black, grey, green. They love their weird looking colours. So I hope that's on demonstration today, and we'll see how they do. This video is sponsored by Noble Knight Games. Check out the video description below for an affiliate link that will take you through to their store, and it will help me out as well. Thanks. So after that brief word from the channel sponsor, the mission we're going to do today, or try rather, is from the Quick Start rulebook. It's called Control the Field, which I don't believe we've done yet. In each end phase, in which one or more of a player's mechs is within 12 inches of their opponent's home edge, you score points equal to that mech's size. You can score multiple, for multiple mechs being within 12 of the opponent's home edge, but they have to be outside of 12 of each other, if that makes sense. So you can't huddle together two of your own mechs and have them both score. They have to actually separate, so that's going to encourage spreading out, especially when it's only one lance each. It means it's going to be quite dangerous. Game ends if one team has scored 12 points, and I don't think it's going to come to that because we're only playing with one lance each. I think it'll probably come down to one side being tabled, but that is still a chance to potentially do it via scoring. So because we're playing on a 3x3 table, we're going to say it's within 8 of home edges rather than 12, the left of your screen, the right of your screen. We'll get both sides rolled off, deployed, and then come back with a flyover where everyone is, and then we'll get started. So both lances have deployed to the field, and Flik's Marauders won the initiative roll, so they'll be going second in both rounds, and we can show you where they ended up with shaky cam. Apologies in advance. So down here we have the Axeman and the Longbow hidden behind the large medical building there. We've got the Mad Cat right there, and starting because it's against the edge of the battlefield on the building, we have the Guillotine. They do have jump capabilities. I think the Mad Cat is the fastest mech on the field with a 10-inch base move, and the Guillotines are second with 8 each. Over here, speaking of Guillotines, for Snord's Irregulars, there's their Guillotine next to their Spartan. Highlander, central field, although this big mountain here is blocking their line of sight. And down here in the corner, which is a bit hard to see, but we do have the Frankenmech there. So as always, we'll be doing the entirety of the movement phase, so we'll show you where everyone ended up and at what speed they moved, and then we'll go into turn by turn for the combat phase. So we are back with turn 1 movement complete. I did forget to mention on camera, just in case you aren't aware, but since it's important for the purposes of scoring victory points in the mission type being played, the heavy mechs are size 3, the assault mechs are size 4. So that's the point values that will be getting scored. Nothing in the first round though, because obviously they're too far apart. But we can show where everyone moved up, and starting with the Axeman here, who sprinted. Sorry for the shininess on that, but he did sprint, so no attacking this turn from him. The Longbow simply moved up to get line of sight, so didn't have to rely on indirect fire. The Mad Cat also moved up, wanting to bring those weapons to bear, so did not sprint. And the Guillotine for Flik's Marauders is basically just bunny hopping between buildings, and is going to try and do that down the field. For Snord's Irregulars, their Guillotine jumped over the building here, kind of halfway on the road, halfway on the rock, with a jumping move. The Spartan is actually as fast as the Mad Cat, 10 inches, so just did a ground move as well. Looks like he can probably see him and shoot at him as well. Over here, the Highlander sprinted. Highlanders are slow, so he had to sprint to start making some distance. So no shooting for him this combat phase. And then the Frankenmech, I'm going to call it the Frankenmech, it's such a fun name. He did a ground move. That big mountain is definitely obscuring his vision from most targets. I'm not convinced he'll be able to see anybody. We'll need to measure that very carefully. But anyway, with that, we're going into the combat phase with Snord's Irregulars doing their shooting first. So speaking of the Frankenmech, it was actually him that got started, seeing if he could see anybody. Because of how high this hill is getting and the angle at which he is with how close he is, can't see the Guillotine, can't see the Mad Cat. But round the corner here, he can see the Longbow, getting cover because it's definitely partially blocked, but just inside medium range as well, thanks to moving up. So in his medium range bracket, he's got 5 weapons, base skill of 4. Medium range makes that 6, TMM of the Longbow makes it 7, partial cover makes it 8. So all said and done, he blasted his weaponry down the field all the way down to the Longbow right there, chipped off 2 of his armor. I think he has like 9 left. The Longbow has a ton of armor but not much structure. He's pretty sturdy. Next up was the Spartan, bringing his 4 medium-range weapons to bear against the Mad Cat. I looked up those special rules just to satisfy my own curiosity. It feels like one of them is only meant for mech-to-air combat, and then the other one could not see in the rulebook at all, the like MSQ1 or whatever it was. Rules not familiar with. Mech I've never heard of either, but neat looking. Either way though, 4 medium weapons, all said and done, he was needing to hit 8s as well. Base skill of 4, medium range for 2, and TMM of the Mad Cat for 2, so that brings it to 8. He managed to just get a single point of damage off of it, and didn't do anything else. But this version of the Mad Cat is not quite as high-tech as the one we saw last time as part of Wolf's Dragoons. It's a little cheaper points-wise, it's still got decent armour, it's only got 4 structure if you actually get through its armour though. And it can still pack a punch. It's not quite as good a model though, in terms of just like the type of Timberwolf it is. And because the Highlander sprinted, he is not firing anything, so it just came down to the Snord's Irregulars guillotine, which has 4 medium range weapons that he also fired into the same Mad Cat. Slightly worse chance to hit base skill 4, medium range 2, TMM of 2, but he jumped for another 2, so he was looking for 10s. He almost got a crit. Didn't quite manage it, but he did manage to land a single point of damage, leaving the Mad Cat / Timberwolf A with 6 armour remaining. And now it is over to Flik's Marauders to start shooting back. So of course the Axeman can't fire because it sprinted, it's trying to get into point blank range to swing that axe, hence the name. So instead, the guillotine that jumped up onto the building, or rather from one building to the other, shot first, not with a high chance of hitting because he jumped for a +2 to the chance to hit. Hitting a jumping target is their TMM +1, but he fired at their guillotine, so it was guillotine on guillotine violence. All in all, needing 10s I believe it was, and scoring a single hit. Both sides, despite being different models, have the same number of armour and structure. By the way, I think it's 6 apiece, or it's either 6 or 8 apiece. Either way, 1 point of damage down here. Well, next it was time for the Mad Cat to do what it does best, which is fire a ridiculous number of short or medium range weapons, medium range in this case, at a target and try and delete them. Also overheated for the one that it's allowed to do a little bit of extra damage. Didn't get any crits. There's one set of dice missing. That's because it was a miss. Just left the hits there. So all 6 hits got through, well, 6 out of 7, plus 1 extra damage for overheating into the Highlander that sprinted over here, chipping off all but 2 of its armour just like that. That's what Mad Cats are good for, or Timberwolves, whichever. Either way, they kill really good. Final bit of shooting for this combat phase was the longbow, who decided to take advantage of the damage the Timberwolf did by going after the Highlander as well. Slightly obscured by the mountain blocking its lower half and base a little bit, so it did get cover. His base skills obviously 4, the Mad Cat had skill 3, so overall less chance to hit. Medium range adding 2, TMM for 1, and then another 1 for the cover, but still managed to get 2 hits through, neither of them being a crit though. Everyone is real good at rolling 11s so far, but no 12s. Also didn't actually touch structure damage, but did chip off the last of his armour, so no automatic crit from hitting the structure. Next bit of damage he takes will though, so that Highlander is in danger of dying before he gets to do anything fun. But it's his own fault for sprinting, really. With hindsight, he probably shouldn't have done that. So at the end of the first round there is no points to tabulate because nobody is within 8 inches of their opponent's combat edge, so 0 points scored on either side. It's not just about getting across the map though, obviously a tabling will still result in victory, and just getting rid of a mech will also do them well score wise, because the Highlander is an assault mech, so it would have been worth a great number of points if it did make it across the table. That's almost certainly not going to happen now. Even if it doesn't get destroyed, force withdrawal will eventually kick in, so it will be down to the rest of the lands to try and get through. In the meantime, they've got to worry about the Mad Cat because it does an insane amount of damage. It's not that hard to take out once you break its armour, but it deals a ton of damage prior to that. Anyway, we'll move into round 2 and finish the movement phase for that after a quick initiative roll. After the initiative roll for round 2, Flik's Marauders once again won the roll, so they'll be going second in both rounds, and we'll be back with all the movement done as just stated. And just like that, the movement for turn 2 is over. Both sides being slightly different shades of like turquoise is now not paying off, obviously, because it's a bit hard to tell who's where, but I'll talk you through it with a little bit of shaky cam to move in. Actually, let's zoom in just a little bit. So, all said and done, the Axeman did actually manage to get into the rear arc of the Spartan, moving very late in the turn. Not necessarily the right option, because he absolutely could have sprinted to be a scoring unit this turn. The thinking is reduce the number of mechs in the enemy lands, so then you can score at your own leisure. That's the thinking that went into. well, I'm lying really, it's just use an axe on a mech. That's the real thinking. So anyway, the Spartan itself also just moved up to get line of sight of the Mad Cat and the Longbow. In the end though, the Longbow's the only one who he can still see, due to where the the Timberwolf Mad Cat ended up. Speaking of which, the Longbow just kind of moved into position, wanting to stay ideally in that medium range bracket to do the most possible damage. The guillotine for Flick's Marauders jumped from the building over to the rocks over there, which is also where the very badly damaged Highlander has hidden himself. He was actually the first to move in the turn. He scooted himself up into there. He's got line of sight on the Axeman. He can definitely fire. The Longbow would only be able to shoot him with indirect fire at this point, with him being concealed behind the mountain there. The Mad Cat did a sprint action this turn. He's not going to be attacking. He is not quite in scoring because we're playing on the smaller table, like I mentioned at the top of the video. 8 inches is how close you have to be to the edge to count as a scoring unit, so he's not quite there yet. Does mean he'll get to cool down though, since he's not firing this turn, I think. I think you're still allowed to cool down even if you've sprinted. The Snord's Irregulars guillotine is up on this rock here now, jumped up, and that means he's got clear line of sight to fire to try and stop the Timberwolf scoring next turn. The Frankenmech kind of put his back against the mountain here, scared of the Axeman. It's got line of sight of the Axeman where he is. He can see the guillotine, he can see the longbow. He's got his choice of targets, not sure who he's going to go after yet. They will have to pick first though, because they lost the initiative roll. So we're over to Snord's Irregulars shooting in the second combat phase. So our first port of call for this combat phase was Snord's Irregulars guillotine, firing medium range into the Timberwolf / Mad Cat. Ridiculously consistent in the results on the dice, but sadly for them, none of them hit. Base skill of 4, jumped, so that's adding on 2. Medium range, adding on another 2. Base modifier on the target as 2 as well, so I was looking for 10s. Closest he got was that 9, but yeah, not quite identical obviously, but scarily close across all the dice rolled. Next up for Snord's Irregulars was their probably soon to be dead Highlander, who didn't have any overheat capabilities, so he couldn't even just go all in. But at medium range he is pretty deadly, firing 6 weapons, and he brought them to bear against the Axeman, who is just at the bottom of your screen there, getting ready to swing it at the Spartan. Base skill of 3 on the Highlander, 2 more for range, and I believe the Axeman's modifier was a 1. Yeah, so every hit except the red dice got through, chipped off most of his armour. He has 1 armour left and 3 structure, so he's now in the danger zone. Well, seeing the opportunity to finish off a target, the Frankenmech attacked at short range, giving it 5 weapons to fire into the side of the Axeman's hull, and all said and done needing 4s, 5s, and then that's it, because you don't add on any for short range attacks. So he didn't need to roll well, and only 1 of the 5 weapons missed, taking away the rest of the Axeman's armour and all his structure, so there's really no need to roll for the crit since it's not like an explosion would damage nearby mechs or anything. He is dead. After he gets one last chance to shoot, he is out of there as the first casualty on the table. The final bit of shooting for Snord's Irregulars was the Spartan firing 4 medium range weapons right into the longbow smack dab in front of it. Longbow's a pretty easy target, although it does have a movement modifier of 1, it's not a 0 like some mechs, but did pretty well with only, oh you can't see all the dice can you, only 1 missed. The red set seems to roll low. I don't know if it's probably a coincidence, that's how coincidences work, but it does feel like they often roll low. Either way, the other 3 got through, leaving the longbow on 4 structure remaining, and then beyond that 4 armour. Well, the red dice must have been listening as we roll for the first attack for Flick's Marauders. It's the guillotine who is firing into the Highlander. It is in one of its front arcs, so it's allowed to do that even though it looks like he's not facing it, or couldn't face it. Getting 1 extra for cover because he can really only see the upper half there. So I think he was needing 8s, but he rolled really well, including getting a crit naturally on the red dice, but only 1 miss, so that's 3 damage there, plus a crit, plus another crit for cracking into structure. So we're just going to roll 2 sets of dice live for what those 2 crits are doing. We'll just pull back a little bit to see the results. Roll down here. So that is a 3 and a 9. So the 3 is an engine hit, and the 9 is no effect. So nothing much there. The Highlander did live though, so he's going to get another turn, because I don't think... Oh, is it worth the longbow indirect firing? Oh, because he can't see his base. He could technically see like a bit of this gun poking out, but as far as I'm aware, that doesn't count. So he would have to indirect fire, but it would do enough damage to kill him. He'd have to do that instead of firing at the Frankie mech or the Spartan. That's a tough choice. He'd have to do at least 2 damage, and he's indirect fire 3. Okay. I need to think about that, and we'll be back with the decision because the Mad Cat can't fire this turn, and the Axeman's going last. Well, a decision was made, and that was to make use of the indirect fire to shoot at the Highlander. It was already in forced withdrawal, but forced withdrawal does not mean he stops firing, and he can do a lot of damage in short and medium range, which would definitely take out the Timberwolf. So decided to try and take out the Highlander. Now, I believe in the last video we did on Alpha Strike, which was on the Hex map, we decided that for indirect fire, the damage was a single roll, and then that's how much damage was done. That's how it is in the rulebook, but if you're using the variable damage, as someone pointed out to me, really you should be doing variable damage on indirect fire as well. If that's not written in indirect fire, do let me know, but it would make the most sense, because otherwise using indirect fire when it's as good as it is on the longbow would just be the de facto best choice. Just hide behind a building and have one roll on a pretty good chance to hit from standing still for 3 guaranteed damage. I mean, maybe that's the way it's intended to be, but if you're using variable damage, I think it's actually meant to apply to indirect fire as well. But you can let me know on that and we can adjust going forwards. This time though, we did roll for all 3. A single bit of damage got through with 2 absolute whiffs, which means only 1 more structure came off of him. So the Highlander lived on 1 health and no one else can shoot him this turn. Actually, you know what? The Axeman could, but there's no... Well, the Axeman is dead at the end of a turn. There's no way the Axeman isn't swinging that axe. He brought it for a reason. So he's still going to swing at the Spartan's back armor for as much damage as possible before he explodes, even though the smarter thing would probably be for him to just shoot the Highlander, because if we just pull back a little bit here, it is still in one of his front arcs. This is the rear arc here, so he would be allowed to fire at it. No, he's using the axe. He's 100% swinging that axe. So the Axeman swinging that axe into the back of the Spartan did also raise more questions about variable damage, because if you're firing multiple missiles over terrain at something, it makes sense that variable damage would apply. Some will hit, some won't. But if you're swinging a single axe, which is doing more than a single point of damage, it doesn't really make logical sense for it to have variable damage across every point of damage, if that makes sense. So we did just roll once for the axe swing. If that is incorrect, you can obviously let us know. But the Axeman swung, he got a 10, which is enough to hit, and he also overheated. Couldn't see anything in the overheat rule that says it doesn't affect close combat melee hits, and he has the melee special rule, hence the axe, which means the damage dealt by successful attack in close combat for him is his size plus 1, so it's his size is 3, so that's 4 damage, plus he overheated for 5, plus he's hitting in the rear arc, making it 6, so 6 damage into the back of the Spartan is actually pretty decent. Took off almost all his armor. He's got 1 armor left and then 4 structure beyond that. Sadly, that's his last act, so we're not going to need to bother worrying about this roll now for the rest of the game, because he is seconds away from exploding. So at the end of the second round, it is still a goose egg on both sides. 0 points to each side. No mechs are close enough to their opponent's line for deployment to score anything. The Mad Cat is very close. The Spartan, now that he's lived, could probably start shifting over there. He's just as fast, so we'll probably see scoring at turn 3. But we do have some casualties to deal with, obviously, as just mentioned. The poor Axeman is now deceased. His mech has explodinated. The Highlander hung on by a thread. He's in forced withdrawal, so he's going to have to walk towards his own edge. He's not going to have any chance of being a scoring unit, but he is going to get 1 more turn of combat. And that is very crucial because he is firing 7 weapons, I think, at short and medium range. Definitely at short, maybe 6 at medium. He is very dangerous and is getting to shoot 1 more time before he's off the field one way or the other. So that's catastrophic for Flick's Marauders, especially now they're a person down. They need to start thinking about getting some scoring units, for sure. But anyway, let's move into the top of round 3. At the top of the third turn, after the initiative roll, Snord's Irregulars won the roll-off this time, so it'll be Flick's Marauders moving first and shooting first in a change of pace. And movement for turn 3 is complete, and we are going to have some scoring units unless something catastrophic happens to a lot of mechs this turn. Let's start with Snord's Regulars just because 3 of them are right over here. The Spartan moved his 10 inches and is facing where the longbow ended up. He is a scoring unit. He is within 8, so he would score, I think he's an assault mech, so that would be 4 points of the 12 required to win as is. The Franken mech started making his way but didn't sprint, wants to be able to fire. So does their Guillotine, who did another jumping action to get down onto the road with line of sight up the top of the table. The Highlander had to retreat because he's in forced withdrawal, but he's still allowed to fire. Put his back against the building there and is aiming in that direction. The Timberwolf was originally over there. In the end, though, the Guillotine bounced up over there for Flik's Marauders. And unfortunately, sorry, he was over there, bounced over there. Unfortunately, he is just outside of 8, so he is not a scoring unit. The Madcat was going to sprint so they could have 2 scoring units this turn, because remember they have to be 12 inches apart, otherwise only one of them counts as scoring. So, such as it is, he wasn't within 8, so the Madcat / Timberwolf just hid behind this building here. He does still have line of sight. He could definitely shoot over here, probably get a pot shot in at the Franken mech, or if he's willing to shoot long range, the wounded Spartan probably wouldn't be able to take it out, but might set him up for another turn. The longbow just did a little move, ground move there. Has his choice of targets. Unfortunately, they have their chance to hit him as well, and he's a bit slow to get over there. I think with the loss of the Axeman, the Irregulars are now just hoping sheer weight of numbers and also just literally the weight of the mechs is just going to see them through, even though they're going to lose the Highlander this turn almost certainly. But we'll see. Anyway, it is Flik's Marauders shooting first this time, so let's see what they can do, the 3 of them that are left. So first up for shooting for Flik's Marauders was the Timberwolf, who shot down the other end of the table. You just have to take my word for it, because it's all the way down there. He shot at the Spartan despite only having 3 weapons at long range. Not the most ideal, especially considering how devastating he is in short and medium range, but chipping off a bit more damage means that if the longbow was to also hit the Spartan, there's a chance they'll destroy it. Not a great chance, but there is a chance. So he was shooting at extreme range, base skill of 3, 4 extra for long range, +1 for cover, +2 for their movement modifier. So was looking for something high, but luckily a 12 covers it. That's all though. I think it was a 10 in total he needed. So only 1 bit of damage, which pinged off his last bit of armor on the Spartan. Didn't actually damage his structure, so no crit from that. He has 4 structure left, but did get a crit on that. So we're going to roll for that live and see what that crit does to the Spartan. And that is a 5, 6, 7, 8. An 8 is a weapon hit, which doesn't really help anything. I was hoping for something that would, honestly just explode him, but his weapon has been damaged. So it was down to the longbow to try and take out that Spartan, who can just about see beyond the medical building at the bottom right of your screen here. He is in one of the front arcs, so it's just, use your imagination. He half-turned his torso and is shooting at it. In Alpha Strike, you don't have special rules for turning your torso or anything. In classic Battletech, you do. I think he was looking for 10s or 909s, sorry, overall. Base skill of 4, medium range makes it 6, TMN makes it 8, 9, yeah. Oh wait, it makes it 8. I could have sworn it was better, hang on. Base skill of 4, range adds on 2, and then his dodge is another 2, so 8. Yeah, he was looking for 8s, and he managed to land 3 of the hits and get a natural crit, but it isn't quite enough to get the kill. It is enough that he'd be in forced withdrawal, but he needs to die this turn, otherwise he's a scoring unit, because scoring happens after damage is applied. So, that crit, plus another one for getting into structure damage, needs to be a double 6, basically, because that'll blow up the mech. Anything else is going to be irrelevant from scoring this turn. So, we only have 1 set of spare dice. Going to pull back the camera a little bit and roll that crit first. That's a 7, which is MP hit, so his movement's halved, doesn't really matter. And the crit for getting into structure, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is no critical damage. He's going to score his turn, can't stop him. Oh, it stings, but there was one more chance actually to take out the Spartan. The Guillotine that hadn't fired yet, whose job it was to finish off the Highlander, he can see the Spartan. Thought he was at long range, which means he couldn't fire because he has no long range weaponry, but he is in medium range. So he fired his 4 medium range weapons at the Spartan. Base skill of 4, medium range adds on 2, his TMM adds on another 2, meaning he needed 8s. And if you kindly count up the numbers with me there, you'll see that with all 4 weapons, he completely missed. So not only is the bleeping Highlander going to live another turn, but he didn't even finish off the 1 health on the Spartan, which is just awful, because that's the shooting done now for my Marauders. It is over to Snord's Irregulars, and they are going to, well, either way, they're scoring this turn, and they're going to do some damage. Well, first up was the Highlander, who crackled over the radio, "You shouldn't have buried me, I ain't dead yet." Shot at short range into the guillotine, whose job it was to originally take him out. Only needing 5s, base skill of 3, no extra penalties for shooting at short range. Target did jump though, so that's TMM plus 1, which takes it to the 5. He hit with everything for 5 damage, no crits or anything like that though, and left the Flik's Marauders guillotine on 1 structure remaining, so didn't quite crack the shell. But their guillotine definitely could do it. Well, some luck went the other way there actually, with the Snord's Irregulars guillotine absolutely whiffing his shots. Having jumped already, shooting at a target that jumped, base skill 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, he was needing 10s, so he did absolutely 0 damage. So the other guillotine, with which he has a feud I guess, is going to live. Now he will become a scoring unit next turn, but with the Highlander surviving 6 inches, like the Highlander moves so slowly, he's going to still be on the table. He's not going to touch that table edge to get removed from the battle for being in withdrawal. So he's going to get another chance to fire, and I'm not sure the guillotine can stand up to that. Though as a matter of note, because of earlier getting damaged to his engine, I believe it was, the Highlander did generate 1 heat from firing those, even though he doesn't usually have that capability. They're just overheating in general because of the damage he's sustained. Anyway, the Frankenmech shot into the longbow rather than trying to finish off the guillotine. Shooting at short range with 5 weapons, still managed to miss with 2, which is a little bit of a lucky break. 3 of them got through with no crits, leaving the longbow on 1 armor and 4 structure remaining. Now it's down to who does the Spartan fire at. The Spartan, who is also 1 weapon less at each range because of getting blown off. He could shoot at the longbow, maybe crack its shell. He could shoot at the guillotine, try and make the kill easier in the next round. Decisions. The Spartan decided to fire into the longbow because it is in forced withdrawal now, so he'll have to start retreating towards his own table edge, meaning he might get a crack at the guillotine next turn anyway. So normally 4 weapons reduced down to 3 for damage sustained, and he didn't do that great. He only managed to get 1 hit through, which chipped off the last armor on the longbow, but didn't taste the lovely innards inside, so no crit roll. And that takes us to scoring for the round. So at the end of that round, the Spartan is scoring. He is within 8 of the combat edge of the table down here for Flik's Marauders, even though he is now going to be withdrawing towards his own table edge. He still scores equal to his size. He's an assault mech, so that is size 4 of the 12 they need to win. He obviously will not be contributing any more now beyond shooting at stuff, but he has at least put someone on the board. And for Flik's Marauders, down the other end of the table, if we just shimmy over here just a little bit so you can see him, the Mad Cat is a scoring unit, Guillotine is not. The Mad Cat / Timberwolf is also, he's an assault mech, he's got to be. No, actually he's a heavy mech. He is worth 3 points. So Snord's Irregulars are 1 point ahead as we go into the 4th round, I think. Top of the 4th round, and Snord's Irregulars have once again won the initiative roll, so they will be going second in the movement and shooting phases. Let's see where everybody ends up, keeping in mind forced withdrawals have to be towards their home edge. So that is movement complete. A lot of shifting around, in fact. A lot of mechs sprinted this turn. The Spartan in forced withdrawal does not have to sprint and is also moving at half speed due to his movement points getting smacked earlier in the game, so he just moved back 5 and is still in a position to see the longbow. The Frankenmech sprinted down here, kind of prepping for the next turn so he can get right into the corner and be 12 inches apart from the Guillotine, who sprinted up there. Currently they are within 12, so only one of them will score. They're both size 3, so it's worth the same points regardless, but it's setting themselves up for scoring 6 in one more turn. The longbow sprinted to try and get out of line of sight. Only the Spartan can see him and can shoot this turn, at least from this side of the table. Down here, the Mad Cat has moved behind this building for safety, still counting as a scoring unit unless he gets taken out, of course. Over here, the Highlander didn't quite make it off the table with his 6 inches of movement. The Guillotine for Flik's Marauders tried to do a jump action to get right behind him, but his base would have been off the table, which means it's an illegal move, so instead he's just beside him. Assuming he lives, he is 12 inches apart from the Mad Cat, so that would be 2 scoring units. But that's with the assumption that the Highlander doesn't kill either of them, because neither of them are in his rear arc, so he can shoot at either of them depending on what's required. But shooting wise though, Flick's Marauders are going first. Longbow can't fire, so it's just down to these two down here. So certainly an awkward angle to get, but the Mad Cat shot medium range into the Highlander. One extra die was re-rolled, more than enough damage. He had one structure left, so that is very much the Highlander exploding at the end of the turn, but that was the expected result. 2 turns ago at this point. He's still going to get a chance to fire. That does mean that the guillotine is freed up, does not need to shoot the Highlander because it's already exploding. He could shoot at the Spartan, I think. The corner of this building, that building might be blocking him. We'll have to check. So luckily for the guillotine, he can actually see the Spartan clearly once you turn. I know you can't see it from this angle, but he absolutely can see him very clearly. And he's just inside medium range. He's just inside the 24 because again he doesn't have any long range. So had to be within range medium to be able to do an attack. He was. You can see the dice at the top of the screen there. He only needed 1 success. He got 3 out of 4. So that is the Spartan exploding at the end of the round as well. And that's the shooting for the Marauders done. It is over to just the 2 units, both of whom are actually dead, for Snord's Irregulars to start firing. So the Highlander opted to shoot at the guillotine because the Timberwolf has too much health. They're both size 3, they're both worth the same points. So turn to fire, I'm getting 1 extra difficulty to hit because of accumulated heat, because of the damage he's sustained, damaging his engine. And he still managed to do very well. That was a miss, but 4 damage through. Got into the insides of the guillotine, leaving it on 3 structure, but more importantly, proccing a crit. And if the crit does something nasty, I don't think a 5 is going to do something nasty. That was a 5 over here. A 5 is no critical hit at all, so if that had blown up the guillotine, that would have been catastrophic. All that left was the Spartan, who returned the favour by shooting at the guillotine as well to try and finish it off. Reduced 1 weapon because of damage sustained. Whiffed with that, but both of those got through, taking off 2 more of his structure. Didn't kill him, left him on 1 structure remaining. Did put him into forced withdrawal though, so he's going to start fleeing. But he is going to score this round. And speaking of which, that takes us to the scoring. So this is an interesting one. At the end of round 4, the Spartan explodes. It wasn't in contention for scoring anything. Anyway, the Highlander also explodes. It would have walked off the table at the top of turn 5 anyway. So Snord's Irregulars reduced to 2. The guillotine that managed to live to the top left of your screen, and the Mad Cat / Timberwolf that's hiding behind this building here, they are more than 12 inches apart. They both score. They're both worth 3 each. So that is 6 additional points, taking Flick's Marauders to 9 of the 12 required to win. Over the other end of the table, the Frankenmech or the Guillotine for Snord's Irregulars score. They both can't score because they're within 12 of each other. So only one of them scores for 3 points, taking them to 7. So as we go into the 5th turn, which is going to be the last, no matter which way it shakes out, I think, Flick's Marauders are actually winning 9 against 7, but both sides have the capability to get to 12 points if they just ignore each other. If they do ignore each other, however, Flick's Marauders will win by default because they'll have more weight worth of points, that is. So I don't know if there's any way for them to stop that happening. I guess we'll see. Let's go into the final turn. End of the top of the 5th and final turn, just to have it on camera. The initiative roll was won by Flick's Marauders, so they are going second. Yep, so with movement done, there isn't really going to be a combat phase. We could probably just go straight to scoring after this, just because of the way it's worked out. Now, the guillotine for Flick's Marauders is in forced withdrawal, so it had to start moving towards its home edge. It's not a scoring unit as a result, it's outside of 8 inches. The longbow sprinted behind that building to be safe from cover, and because he sprinted he can't fire, he can't even use, even if he could use indirect fire, if it did maximum damage it still wouldn't kill. I guess there is an outside shot if it did a crit that you roll a double 6 on the crit, but it doesn't matter, he sprinted because he had to get into safety. The Mad Cat basically stayed where it was down here. They are 12 inches apart, but meaning that, well, he moved slightly down, but they're 12 inches apart, meaning that that's 6 points scored on this side, which would take them to 15. And then over here, the Frankenmech is hiding behind this building. He would score for 3. And their guillotine jumped over behind the rock over there. You can just about see him there. So he's also a scoring unit. So they would score a total of 6 as well. There's not a shooting phase. There isn't. So we're just going to go straight to the scoring. And I basically just spelled it out right there, but let's make it official. So with the points scored at the end of that turn, as I just laid out, 6 for Flick's Marauders scoring there, 6 for Snord's Irregulars. That takes the final score to 15 for Flick's Marauders and 13, sorry, not 12, 13 to Snord's Irregulars. So they do lose by the slimmest of margins, just barely. They lose by 2 points. Yeah, 13 plays 15. So it was very close at the end there. There wasn't really much else they could do. Even if they decided to go on the offensive to try and avoid that loss, they don't have indirect fire, or not enough to do damage that would matter. They could kill the guillotine, sure, but that doesn't change anything. These types of missions, I think, probably need a, 1 point for a mech killed type thing to help avoid the situation just being hiding right at the end. It is out of the quick start rulebook, mind you, so it's meant to be not super long, I guess. So that is going to take us to the end. The Marauders taking it just barely, and the surviving Snord Irregulars scavenging the battlefield for the trinkets and shinies that they like to collect. I sincerely hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you very much for doing so. If you want to go above and beyond to support what we do here on the channel, please do consider becoming a channel member. You get to see videos like this one early when they get uploaded, usually the very day they're filmed, more or less. And you could also instead check out the channel sponsor if you want via the affiliate link. If you buy anything after clicking through from that link, I am compensated, and you can pick up something for yourself in the process. They have Battletech on there. Got an eye on a couple of things myself, actually. So either way though, thank you at least just for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and see you in the future for more. Until then, ta-ta for now.